My name is Doane Dorchester, and I'm currently the general manager for Portland Stage Company. I've been an employee of Portland Stage for the last 8 years, and before that, I worked as a stage management intern in the 2008-2009 season. So I started working backstage on shows like Wait Until Dark, and Pugant, and Trying. But a lot of stories have already been told about some of them, so I figured I would tell you a story from the production of Song of Twilight. In my 8 years, I have had a number of different roles and responsibilities, and for that season, I was working with props, among other things, but that show had an interesting challenge. There was a lot of food in that show. There was I think it was like a 5-course meal. And when you're dealing with food on stage, oftentimes the actors are not eating the food that you think they are eating. The challenge is often that you need to find the food that the actors can eat and try and make it somewhat decent and make it look like the food they're supposed to eat. So there was a lot of back and forth on one of the foods was caviar. They were supposed to eat caviar with toast points. And so we literally had to cut the edges off of bread and flatten it and toast it so that they could eat it that way. But we also had to figure out how they could eat caviar because we couldn't afford caviar. And the end result was actually that they did in fact eat caviar. So the actors found it at Rennie's, and we had talked about all of these other options, quinoa, bubble tea. It was just trying to come up with something that wasn't as expensive as caviar, but then they found it at Rennie's and said, nope, I will donate to the theater and allow it so that we can have this caviar. And it ended up not being as expensive, but I can't believe they ate Rennie's caviar on stage. The other part of the meal was a salad, which was, simple grains, cut up some cucumbers, nothing super fancy there, but they also had to have steak with béarnaise sauce. So the béarnaise sauce was yogurt mixed with turmeric, so it had a nice yellow hint to it, and it had a consistency to it. And then the steak was actually, I bought chunks of tofu from Whole Foods, and we would cut it into the shape of a steak, and then we would soak it overnight in a combination of soy sauce and beet juice. So the beet juice made it so that it was nice and red on the inside, and then the soy sauce made the outside brown as if we had cooked it. And we actually did cook it. A lot of what we figured out was I had to come up with, this is what we're gonna do, and then the stage management team and the run crew had to repeat it every night for every show. And then the last thing they ate was a souffle, a chocolate souffle. And we had to have, I think I tried a couple different things, and what ended up working was we just made regular chocolate pudding, and then we added a whole container of Cool Whip. And so we just blended that together so it was nice and frothy, and we put it in those white small dishes, and then I think we froze it and then we cooked it, or we cooked it and then we froze it so that the top was nice and hard, so that it had that hardness to the souffle. And then that show also had multiple bottles of champagne that they popped, and it had to be pink champagne. And the production manager at the time managed to secure a trade deal with someone who managed to provide us with all of the pink champagne. But the problem ended up being that the actors couldn't drink pink champagne on stage for the show and still perform the show. So we had to, we used the pink champagne bottles, and we had to come up with another way. And I think I tried raspberry emergency in with ginger ale, because we kept trying to figure out how we can make the champagne pop and have it have that distinctive champagne pop sound. And we tested a whole bunch of things with the director, and we ended up putting in a real bottle as well as a bunch of alternatives so that he could like be like, oh, well, that one sounds okay. That one sounds, it's fine. And then we opened the real bottle and he goes, that's it, what did you do? And I was like, that was the real one. So we ended up having to record the sound cue of the champagne popping, and it was a recorded sound that you heard during the show. So, needless to say, that show had a lot of challenges, but it was a lot of stuff went into it, and it was a lot of teamwork, of trial and error, and thankfully the actors were game to eat tofu soaked with beet juice and soy sauce covered in yogurt and turmeric. Well, I hope everyone is at home and staying safe and wearing your masks, because we really want to produce theater with you again. So hopefully we'll find a way and we can beat this together. Thanks, everyone.